channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shannon Lee. Today I'm going to be baking a Battenburg cake, and I'm going to be making it fully vegan. So for all of my vegan friends out there who don't know how to make this cake, you guys can totally follow along. I will link down below the recipe that I am kind of following. I kind of modified it to make up my own flavors and kind of have a little fun with this cake. So today I'm going to be doing a pumpkin spice and Nutella, hopefully Kahlua flavored cakes. And typically a Battenburg is a light sponge cake held together with jam wrapped in a marzipan. And as you can see, I've got a little kitty here. Hello. And this cake is cut. The cross section shows a like checkered pattern. That's what we're going to be doing today. Tip is kind of like a white and like a pink or yellow and pink color. I'm going to do something a little less traditional. This is actually a challenge that my friend Andrea and I are going to be doing every single week that we are watching the new season of the Great British Bake Off. First week of the Great British Bake Off, they made Battenburg cakes. That's what we're going to be doing. For my followers out there, I'm going to be doing a vegan version, hopefully, of everything that I possibly can. If you guys like this series, and let's get baking.
Let's get started with the pumpkin butter that I used with the first Battenburg. I decided not to use it for the second one because I didn't want it to overpower the flavors of the cake. I'm going to start off by using 29 ounces of pumpkin puree. You want to use this over the pumpkin pie filling, it won't be the same. I also added in 3 cups of white sugar, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to mix this all together, and I'm going to add in about half a teaspoon of some ground cinnamon. I felt like it needed a little bit more after the pumpkin pie spice. I'm also going to be adding in about 3/4 cups of this apple butter syrup that I have from when I made apple butter a couple days ago. You can also add in any other liquid sweetener. Apple juice or apple cider will also work. You just need a liquid so it doesn't burn. I started setting my crock pot to about 4 hours on high, but I felt that after 4 hours it needed extra 2, so here's what it looked like. It definitely thickened up a lot.
So what you see here is most of the ingredients I will be using in today's Battenburg. I am using some self-rising flour, which I got off of Amazon. Again, I will link all this stuff down below. You're gonna want some castor sugar, which is basically just some superfine cane sugar. I have some Nutella. I'm using some Kahlua. You don't have to use the Kahlua. You could use like cocoa powder or something else, something similar. Chocolate syrup, something to give it some flavor if you don't want to do the alcohol, but I thought it'd be fun with the Nutella. This is the vegan Earth Balance butter that I use. This is the brand that I really like the most. I know that there are other brands out there, but this is the one I like using, and I happened to be at the store today and found that they had an unsalted version, so I wanted to try that because obviously unsalted butter is much better for baking because then I can control the salt content. And then I previously made this earlier. It is the pumpkin butter, which we are going to use in our cake instead of the jam. I also purchased this almond meal flour, and I got it from Smith's or Kroger, whatever grocery store you want to call it. They're the same company. But this is the flour that I'm using for my ground almonds instead of doing it myself. This is usually recommended for this type of recipe because it is a lot drier versus grinding your own almonds. First off, when you grind your own, they're not going to be as fine, and they're also going to be a little more wet, but this is a lot drier, and that's what we wanted for this recipe. My spices, I'm going to be using pumpkin pie spice. I'm going to be using some cinnamon, vanilla extract, and I was lucky enough to find some pumpkin pie spice like extract. So that's what we have here, and that's what I am going to be using. And this is all for the cake. There are a few other ingredients that I will mention, but these are kind of the ones that stand out that are a little different. I will show you guys where I got those if you guys want to check out the description box. So the first thing the recipe calls for is to add in all of our dry ingredients. So we are going to whisk together the self-rising flour, castor sugar, ground almonds, baking powder, and salt. I have already pre-measured everything, so we're gonna start off with 275 grams of self-rising flour, and that is right here. Just gonna add that in. And then we have 220 grams of castor sugar. I had to go on Amazon and buy this. This is basically just a super fine sugar, somewhere between a normal granulated sugar and confectioner sugar, which is like the powdered stuff that most bakers use. Baking powder and salt, I've got 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And 80 grams of ground almonds. I just use some almond meal flour, finely ground. Close enough. It's better than grinding my own. It's a lot drier, so I wanted to add that in here. You could make your own, but I typically don't recommend it because grinding your own almonds means you're gonna have a lot more moisture in there. And we are just gonna whisk this to combine all of the dry ingredients. That looks about mixed. I'm going to set this aside and we're gonna work on the wet ingredients. Now we're gonna add in the wet ingredients to here. We're gonna add in some melted vegan butter, non-dairy milk, and vanilla extract. I have 190 grams of vegan butter, which I have melted. I personally like the Earth Balance brand. They have recently started selling an unsalted version, so that's what we're using here. I have already mixed in my vanilla extract and my non-dairy milk. I have 190 milliliters of non-dairy milk and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're just going to whisk this. Non-dairy milk that I used, I forgot to mention, is oat milk. We are gonna take our dry ingredients and we are slowly going to mix in the wet. Sorry if you didn't hear that. We're slowly gonna mix in the wet ingredients to the dry. And try not to overbeat your batter because that's not gonna help. That is my mixed batter. Grab our kitchen scale and another bowl. We are going to use this to determine how much our batter weighs. It weighs about 893 grams. I am going to split this batter into two so I can get two different cakes for my Battenburg, which means I need about 446 grams split evenly amongst the two. So let's get that done. I'm gonna use one of my other bowls. Now we're just gonna add in batter till we get 446. But it's fine. Okay. So that's about 446 grams. That means we have 2 equal bowls of batter. Now we have 2 equal bowls of batter. I'm gonna do 2 different flavors. I'm gonna do this one as kind of like the orange bowl as a pumpkin spice, and this one's gonna be more of a Nutella flavor. Add in, we are going to start off with the orange bowl. I'm gonna be adding in 2.5 teaspoons of pumpkin puree, 1/4 teaspoon of pumpkin pie extract, and 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice.
And here we go. I'm about to keep overbeating the batter. Woo!
That is my pumpkin spice batter. I'm gonna be adding in some orange food coloring just so I can get it more orange and it'll have more of a contrast.
Not sure why I didn't just add all the ingredients at once and only mix the batter once, but here we are after the fact, thinking of all the things I should have done better on the cake.
To have a bright orange cake as part of our Battenburg. I am going to add in a little extra cinnamon because I think it needs a little more flavor.
Oh look, we're doing more mixing. Why, Shannon, why?
My whisk, and I'm gonna get started on the other one. For the other batter, we're gonna do a contrasting flavor. I'm gonna do Nutella and Kahlua, and I have 2.5 teaspoons of Nutella and 1 teaspoon of Kahlua, which I'm going to add in.
I'm just cringing looking back at all of this mixing and everything I did wrong here.
Batter looks like.
Well, that was what my batter looked like before I decided it needed more flavoring and even more mixing.
Nutella Kahlua batter. I'm actually gonna add another tablespoon of pumpkin to this one because I think it needs a little bit more flavor, keep it from being bland. So we're gonna do about a tablespoon of that and some more pumpkin pie spice extract.
I can add all the spice in the world, but the pumpkin butter is gonna overpower this cake.
Is our pumpkin batter. This is the cake pan I'm gonna be using today. I actually just got this off of Amazon and I will link it down below. It is my first time using it, obviously. Literally, I got this like 2 minutes before I filmed this video. So we will see how this goes. I have already tried to line it with some parchment paper. I also greased it a little bit. We're gonna do pumpkin on one side and Nutella on the other. There we go. Hopefully that kind of fixes it and turns it more into like a loaf. I can already tell you this is not gonna be the prettiest Battenburg you've ever seen. Let's do what I'm doing here. I'm gonna pour in the Nutella layer over here. Everything you saw me do with the parchment paper is not what a professional baker would do, so I would not recommend. So this is what the pans look like after I have filled them. As you can tell, parchment really sucks. And let me just be honest, this is my first time ever making this cake. It is my first time ever using this pan. It literally arrived at my door about 2 minutes before making this video. We're gonna see how this goes. So I did line the pans with parchment, and I did also grease them just in case the cake rises a little too much. We're gonna put these in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. In the oven, we're gonna let this bake for 30 to 35 minutes until I can put a toothpick in and it comes out clean, basically meaning that the cake has been baked. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that I didn't mess this up with that weird parchment situation that's going on in there. So while the cake is in the oven, we're gonna work on the vegan marzipan, and I'm gonna do like a pumpkin spiced version of it to go along with the cake. So we're gonna start off by placing our almond flour, powdered sugar, and cinnamon into a food processor, and we're gonna break up any lumps that we have. We're gonna pulse this. We're gonna start off with 180 grams of almond flour. I don't really have that big of a food processor. I just have a little mini one, so we're gonna have to figure out how this is gonna work, because I did double the recipe, so I have enough marzipan for the whole cake, but clearly this is barely enough just for the ground almond flour, so let's see what that happens. And then we are going to add in 140 grams of powdered sugar. Okay, so since this is not gonna fit, I'm just going to start processing this as is and see what happens. Add in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, which I am just gonna eyeball because I'm just trying to get a little bit of a spice flavor. Let's do 2 teaspoons because I feel like it. We're gonna add in our pumpkin spice extract, and we're gonna add in our almond extract. We're gonna add in about 1 teaspoon of each, which again, I'm just gonna eyeball because add in 3 tablespoons of your choice of liquid sweetener. You could add in corn syrup. If you have another liquid sweetener like stevia, maple syrup, agave, a lot of people have said they've had success with agave. You could do that. But in my case, I'm gonna be using this syrup from my leftover apple butter that I made a couple days ago. I made apple butter and I made pumpkin butter. So we're gonna be using some of the syrup from this. We are just going to add that in up here. Too wet, you can add in some more almond flour or some more powdered sugar. Hit the point where I am going to transfer everything to a bowl and just mix it by hand and hope for the best. So now I am just gonna knead this with my hands and hope that this dough forms properly. Our marzipan. I've never made this before, but to me it seems a little too sticky, so I might add in extra powdered sugar to hopefully break this up just a little bit. So this is the point where I am going to add in food coloring.
I use a silicone mat just in case it stained my counter.
Vegan marzipan. So it's been about 30 minutes and I just tested my cakes. They are good to go. I can take them out of the oven. They're not the prettiest, but I will clean them up later. So let's take them out. This is what the cakes look like fresh out of the oven. I already did the toothpick test. They are both fully done, and I am going to let these cakes cool for about 20 minutes in the pan before I take them out and let them cool on a cooling rack. You want these to cool completely before you start working with them and before you start cutting them. We are just gonna let these sit and be as patient as possible. In the meantime, with my marzipan, I am going to wrap it in some plastic and put it in the refrigerator. I'm just gonna put it there while I clean up and we wait for the cakes to cool. So now that the cakes have cooled, I've let them sit probably like an hour or 2 out. And after like 20 minutes, I moved them to this cooling rack, and they've been sitting here, like I said, for like the past like hour or 2. And now we're just gonna trim them up and hope for the best. They're not cooled properly.
So at this point, I made a mistake of stacking the cakes and cutting them and just working with them. Obviously, I needed to cool them a little bit longer, maybe put them in the fridge to let them firm up, but it clearly wasn't working and I completely messed this up. As you can see, it's just crumbling as I'm working with it. You would think I would stop and put it in the fridge, but no. So obviously with my cake crumbling, I decided to keep going, and I took the marzipan out of the refrigerator. It really wasn't that cold. It was still pretty much room temperature. So I was able to roll it out, and as you can see, I forgot to do any dusting sugar to keep it from sticking to my counter, which, as you will see in a little bit, was definitely an issue and a problem that I should have actually solved. But I didn't, so just enjoy my fail at all of this. So I decided that it was time to bring out the pumpkin butter, and as you can see, my cakes were crumbling and sticking, so they definitely weren't cooled enough. But with the pumpkin butter, you want to spread that along all sides of the cake. As you can see, I have my orange one on the bottom. I'm going to do a layer of pumpkin butter and then put the brown cake on top. And then I'm going to put that on my marzipan, but I'm also going to line some pumpkin butter on the marzipan. Basically, pumpkin butter goes around all parts of the cake. I pretty much knew at this point that anything I'm doing is just trying to salvage the cake, and it was just going to crumble, so I just kept going and hoped for the best. I am going to attempt cleaning up the marzipan before I start rolling. Let's just add more pumpkin butter to make it more of a mess. Let's just do that. Just watch me as I attempt to try literally anything to get this marzipan to roll, but it just stuck. So I was trying to move the cake to the cutting board, and because I didn't use the dusting sugar, the marzipan stuck, and here's the flip. It completely fell apart. And now my cake is in crumbles. So, I mean, this was fun, wasn't it? Just watching me fail at this, and oh, look at that mess. I did manage to salvage part of the cake, so I guess I count that as a win.
You saw that was a complete fail. I definitely rolled my marzipan way too thin, which caused it to stick to my countertop. I also didn't dust my countertop with some dusting sugar like I should have, so it stuck. And when I went to move the cake to the cutting board, it fell apart. So I was able to salvage some of it so you guys can see what it was supposed to look like, but pretty much it looks like my orange cake was doing fine, but the brown cake definitely just crumbled. I probably put too much Kahlua, maybe I put too much liquid in there, so I will have to play around with that again, and I will attempt to make this cake another time. But I'm gonna show you guys my counter and what it looks like right now. Please just take a moment to appreciate half of my cake that completely crumbled when I tried to move it to this cutting board, and all of the scraps that I had to trim off. Pretty sure you guys got a nice laugh at that. Like I said, I am not a professional baker. I am just a little at-home amateur baker trying to learn how to do things, and this is what happened. This was the first slice that I cut. Clearly it just fell apart. But look, if you look over here, I actually have a pretty slice of my cake, and you can clearly see nice checkered pattern, except it looks like my Nutella cake, like I said, it looks like that one kind of fell apart. So I will have to tweak that recipe and work on it, but I mean, I don't think it's that bad. Could be better. Obviously, it's not great because of the pile there and the other pile over there. I'm definitely crying on the inside because of that. Okay, so last night I got super frustrated. It is about 7:30 in the morning, and I am going to remake the Battenburg, although instead of Nutella, because it totally slipped my mind that Nutella is not vegan because it does have milk in it. I'm gonna use cocoa powder instead. But yeah, we're gonna switch up the second cake, hope that turns out better. I'm also gonna use a different cake pan, and so I already have my oven, which is preheating right now, and I'm gonna use my glass loaf pans instead this time, just to see if that makes a difference. Obviously I cut my parchment paper just for the bottom this time. But yeah, what I'm gonna do is I am going to mix the batters like I did last time, play around with the ratios of wet to dry when I'm adding in my flavors. So I'm gonna add a little less of the seasonings that I did earlier. And then once I make these cakes, I am going to let them cool properly. I'm gonna let them cool in these for about 20-ish minutes before I remove them. Put them on a wire rack, let them cool again. And I actually have to go to work, like a normal human being. I have to go to work today. I am gonna go and put them in the fridge afterwards while I'm at work and hope that it works better, and hopefully that will cool them down enough that they are solidified so I can actually work with them. Splitting the batteries again, it looks like it's gonna be about 464 grams per stir. So these are the flavorings I used for the pumpkin cake round 2. pumpkin pie spice extract, cinnamon, pumpkin puree, and obviously orange food coloring. This is the pumpkin batter. It's a lot thicker than last time. This time I only added in 1 teaspoon of all of the flavoring, so it seemed to be good on this one. Obviously I added in some food coloring too, so it'll be super orange. One I did in cocoa and orange extract. And then this is the cocoa batter. I added in 3 teaspoons of cocoa powder and 2 teaspoons of orange extract. Right now it seems a little runnier than I'd like, so I'm gonna taste it real quick, and if I need to add another teaspoon of cocoa powder, I will. The cocoa powder, again, it's a powder, so like hopefully that doesn't set my wet to dry ratio, but as you can tell, it's definitely not the same consistency as this one. This one is looking a little bit thicker. I ended up adding in a total of 5 teaspoons of cocoa powder. Maybe I should have only added in 1 teaspoon of orange extract because that orange is extremely strong in here, so hopefully that helped, but it's a better consistency. So ready to get these into the pans and start baking. These are the batters in the pans. I'm gonna put these in the oven at 350 for about 30-35 minutes. So as you can see, the cakes aren't fully baked. They're kind of, sorry, I shouldn't have opened it, but they're kind of sinking in the middle. And this might be because I might have overmixed the batter. But I guess we're gonna have to wait and find out. But as of right now, I'm gonna keep baking them. I think we're over 35 minutes, going closer to 40 minutes at this point. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this turns out okay, because they look a little bit better than they did about 5 minutes ago. So I just tested the cakes and the toothpick came out clean. I think I'm gonna give it like another minute or 2. I know I can overbake these, but they're still sinking a little bit in the middle, and I figure just give them an extra minute to do their thing. As you can tell, they kind of like sunk a little bit in the middle. I don't know how well this will show up, but as long as these baked properly, I should be able to like level them out and trim that off and hopefully get a nice, perfect little squares out of these that I can turn into a checkered pattern. Although I am disappointed in how this one's not as orange as I wanted it to be, and they both look pretty brown. But I'm really just hoping that is just because of the slight overbakedness on the top. I got the cakes out of the pans and I am gonna leave them in the fridge now to cool for a little bit before I working with them. Okay, so the cakes have been cooling in the refrigerator for like the past 2 hours, and I went to Whole Foods and I picked up this orange marmalade. It is vegan friendly, and I think I'm gonna use that instead of the pumpkin butter this time because I think the pumpkin butter was just a little too strong with this type of cake. I'm gonna try that instead, and they feel sturdier, so I think it's gonna work. I also picked up a cake leveler, so we're gonna level those off. And just in case it gets stuck again, like last night, we got a giant cake lifter, but it works. So let's get to it. Let me just say, I didn't even need to use my cake leveler. I'm just using my bread knife on this, and it's working out so much better. I mean, look at the cakes. They're not sticking together this time. They're not crumbling. I mean, this one's crumbling a little bit, but that is, again, because I've been trying to cut it. But look, I guess I can use that for cake pasta, but this is turning out well. This time I have the cakes assembled and they're holding together a lot better. The marmalade is working out really well. So now it's just time to roll this baby up. And this is the final cake. I mean, I'm pretty proud of it. Obviously I need to do my first slice so you guys can see the proper layers, but this is what my cake looks like. And what I did is when I was rolling it, I think my marzipan was a little too cold, so it started cracking, and so the whole top was completely cracked. So I just did a blanket of black marzipan over it. I rolled it really, really thin. It warmed it up. It worked out a lot better. So now I know in the future I need to warm it up a little bit. I did pop it in the microwave for 10 seconds and it really helped. And so that's what I did with the black. I took some of the orange and dyed it black, rolled it out after I heated it up, and it worked perfectly. Obviously it looks really smooth. As for the shapes, I rolled out some more orange marzipan, and I used my smallest cookie cutters, and I used a little pumpkin and a little leaf to kind of give it a cute little fall vibes. And yeah, so that is my finished cake. And I think it's time to cut it. Obviously, see, I'm trying to cover things up. And the way I stuck all of this together, I just used some water, some warm water, just rubbed it on a little bit with my hands and it worked. So that is my vegan Battenburg, and I feel like I redeemed myself after I learned a lot last night. I was too frustrated. Glad I took a step back and redid it today because I'm very proud of this. Video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That lets you know every single time that I am posting a video. And as of right now, I am posting every Monday and every Friday. You guys can also follow me along on Instagram. My username is Simply Shannon Lee, and I am posting on there just about every single day. You guys can see what I'm up to and what videos I'm probably going to be posting soon. So if you guys want to see more videos from this Great British Bake Off challenge that my friend and I are doing, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll have Andrea on here and we will make something together. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!